Hi there, this is Jeremy Byrne. I'm right here with my colleague and good friend Don Taylor.
Howdy. We're here all week at the PRI show and the events leading up to the PRI show.
So we thought we'd give you a quick wrap up and a quick debrief on our experience here in Indy at the Performance Racing Industry Show. It's been a chilly week, but a very productive one, I think.
Yes. The week started with the Women in Motorsports North America big summit meeting, largest meeting they've had. In fact, they had about 600 people registered for this. A 3-day event. They went out to the Speedway. They had a number of great speakers. We were able to talk to Lynn St. James, who was one of the organizers. Beth Peretta, who's now a director for the Formula E series and living in London somewhat. So that was a very successful event and just shows the excitement and activities around the PRI show.
That's an event that's grown from like 40 people to 600 people within the space of 4 years. So there's a tremendous amount of interest among young women and among the motorsport community, and getting more young women and women involved in the motorsport community. So that was a very encouraging thing, I think.
Oh yes, great job they've done there in doing that. Then we went to the RTBC, the Racetrack Business Conference, an annual event run by Tim Frost. This gathers track owners and people in the business and the media trying to figure out the business and how to be more successful in motorsports. So a couple of the trends we saw that they talked about, one is more country club tracks. They just keep growing, and there's incentive for that and interest from those owners of exotic cars.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is a growing way for people to get involved in racing in some way, right? And they seem to be extremely profitable enterprises, and they're growing in number. So we expect to see that as a trend that will probably continue in the future.
Yeah, in fact, we've talked in the past about, there's fewer young people interested in racing. They're now saying that it's kind of turned around. Mm-hmm. They're seeing specialized events for entry-level activity. John Doonan talked about programs they have in terms of classes, in terms
from
of...
IMSA, that is, yeah. From John Doonan from IMSA.
John Doonan from IMSA, yeah. Who is also connected with SCCA as they sanction their events. But talking about new classes that SCCA is adding, classes of racing to attract more people.
And along the same vein, the Grid Life, we saw a company called Grid Life that is also sort of taking that ground up approach by basically making track days into festivals for young and attracting very much a younger demographic by offering music and entertainment and all kinds of different racing and making it accessible and cheap and easy for people to get into.
Yes, and even vehicles themselves. We talked to several people with plans for smaller motorcycle-powered vehicles that would be affordable, open-wheeled and closed-wheeled, to try to get a step from karting up the ladder into more motorsports involvement. Yep. Yeah, and sim racing too. Large sim racing exhibit here and active competition during the week. So it's another route to getting people involved in racing. Getting to the show itself, the show opened on Thursday, and it was, as reported by a PRI, but also by the exhibitors, it was the largest attendance in history on the first day of the show.
Reportedly, yes.
Reportedly.
And actually it did seem like there were a lot of people who... PRI is a great show if you want to do a lot of walking in big crowds.
In big crowds, yes. Crowded aisles, especially the first day. It tapers off a little bit after that, especially here on Saturday, but lots of traffic. The people we visited, despite there not being IndyCar here, NASCAR just showed their lower classes, their lower class
Racing
touring
series,
series,
yeah.
shall we say. Absence also was GM and Ford as far as factory trade engine suppliers and showing in the way they normally would have if they weren't here. But despite that, people we talked to had a lot of business and did
Yeah,
well.
we
Now,
did
who did we see, Jeremy?
So we visited with all our MIA members that are exhibiting here, and we had a number of folks who are just coming to walk the show for the first time in some cases. Right, it was like new to the market.
Like Garth from
ACI Pro Drive, yeah. The big names that most of you are familiar with would be AP Racing and Goodrich, and they reported that the show was good for them, and it certainly seems that way. There's a number of others that we've had that were, our friends from MTS, the racing school in Italy. They're going to be opening up a facility here in Indianapolis, so there'll be another MIA member company setting up here in Indianapolis. It'll be great.
And speaking of Indianapolis, Eugenia is Campana is starting a branch of her mechanic and data acquisition track engineering school in Italy. She is starting a version of that here in Indianapolis. When we saw her, she was just settling on a location for that. Hope to be up and running by April, May.
And in a way, it kind of marries up with some of the feedback that we get from the companies we meet in Charlotte, for example, where everyone's moaning that they can't get enough qualified people to come and work. So this seems to be a business proposition that will be successful because they want that level of training and technology understanding to be able to employ these people. So
exactly,
we're optimistic that next year MTS will be here in a full way.
Yes. Also, we saw some opportunities for companies looking for distribution in the U.S. as a stepping stone to entering the U.S. market. Visited with our friends at SRI, but also we talked to people at United Race Parts. This is a company that the distributor for some Italian products, but also one or two UK products. The people who make the pit stands and equipment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a willingness and opportunity to look at new products from the UK or represent products from the UK or from Europe. So I think folks are coming out next year. These are the kinds of people that we could introduce you to, and hopefully make some inroads into the market through distribution or at least some kind of partnership with these kinds of companies.
Exactly. Turn 14 is another one.
Yeah, Turn 14 is another one. Yeah, very interested in representing. There are like 300 different manufacturers that represent.
Yes.
It depends on whether you're a volume supplier or you're a very niche supplier, but there are certainly opportunities there, and Americans very, very open-minded, I think, about technology from Europe. Increasingly so.
Increasingly so.
Yeah.
That'll be the word for it. Also, interest in the Charlotte visit. People who had not been on the tour before, on the mission before, were like, wow, here's something, and we'll pursue them
and perhaps some new folks for us to visit in Charlotte as well, right? Some new locations and places that we haven't been before that we could take the group to, that have invited us to come and visit.
Yeah.
So we'll be planning that in the spring, I'm sure.
So the potential for the Charlotte mission is growing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in conclusion, Jeremy, what would you say about the PRI show 2024?
So I think the PRI trundles on. It is kind of a behemoth, really, in a way, and it's hugely successful. It's very professionally run. Certainly, lots of people here. All the exhibitors we spoke to were very upbeat about their prospects and the business prospects from the show. And even if they're not writing direct business, they recognize the value in being here to meet existing customers and meet new potential customers. So we wouldn't really hear anything negative at all, I don't think, about the show.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
It seemed to have a new energy, and
Yeah.
certainly a very worthwhile
Yeah,
place to be.
yeah, and a good program of seminars covering all kinds of topics, from how to manage your social media to how to change a gearbox, everything.
Exactly. So, in total, the whole week, its events, the show itself, very worthwhile. And so that's what I would say as well,
Yeah,
Jeremy.
yeah. So we look forward to seeing some of you next year, hopefully. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Don or myself, either on LinkedIn or via email. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the show. That's it, I think, really.
Yeah. So for now, farewell from Indianapolis.
That's goodbye from me, and that's goodbye from him.